Hello everyone. Before we begin our descent, make sure to like and subscribe to Hush Ledger. Leaving a comment telling us where you re-listening from helps the algorithm keep you in the dark with us. Now, let's begin. Story 1. The Salting ... My grandfather kept the light on Sparrows Point for 40 years. It was a lonely, granite finger off the coast of Maine, a place where the wind didn't so much blow as it screamed. When he passed, the job fell to me. I was 24, running from a bad breakup and a stack of student loan debt. The isolation seemed like a cure. The first month was peaceful. The routine was a religion. I'd polish the Fresnel lens until it gleamed, check the diesel generators, log the weather. The only sounds were the gulls, the waves, and the deep, resonant thrum of the light itself, a sound you felt in your teeth. My only human contact was the weekly supply boat from the mainland, piloted by a grizzled old man named Elias who'd just leave the crates on the dock without a word. The unease started small, a feeling more than anything. The kind you get when you walk into an empty room and just know, you're not alone. I'd find things misplaced. A wrench I'd left on the workbench would be on the stairs. A book face down on a page I didn't remember reading. I wrote it off as fatigue, the mind playing tricks in the solitude. Then, the smells began. It was always the same. A thick, briny, rotting smell, like a fishing net left to fester in the sun, heavy with dead things. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with the stench clogging my throat. I searched the entire tower, the keeper's house, the old shed, nothing, but the smell would linger for hours, a sour ghost in the air. One Tuesday, the supply boat didn't come. The weather had turned, the sea a churning gray beast. For 3 days, the radio was just static. The isolation became absolute. That's when the knocking started. It wasn't a random sound, it was a pattern. 3 slow, deliberate raps on the exterior of the tower. Knock, 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 always at 3:17 a.m. I'd rush to the window, my heart a frantic bird against my ribs, and see nothing but the black, swirling fog. The first time, I thought it was a loose cable. The second, a bird. By the 5th night, I knew it was neither. The dread solidified into a cold, hard stone in my gut. I stopped sleeping. I'd sit in the lamp room, a baseball bat across my knees, staring out at the endless dark, waiting for the knocks. The smell of rot was now a constant companion. On the 7th night of the storm, the knocking changed. It was closer. It was on the door to the keeper's quarters. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't move. I just stared at the thick oak door, the bat trembling in my hand. And then, a voice. It was a wet, gurgling whisper, like a mouthful of seawater. The salt preserves us. I don't know how long I sat there, paralyzed. The voice didn't come again. The knocking stopped. When the first gray light of dawn finally bled through the storm clouds, I forced myself to the door. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely turn the knob. I opened it to an empty landing, but on the weathered wooden floorboards, just outside the threshold, was a small, neat pile of dark, withered things. They looked like prunes, but wrong. I leaned closer, my stomach lurching. They were human fingers, shriveled and salted, like ancient fish, and tucked among them was a faded, water-stained photograph of my grandfather, standing with 2 other men I didn't recognize. Their faces were grim. And behind them, carved into the granite base of the lighthouse, were 3 words, now worn almost smooth by the wind and rain. The salt holds. I never went back. I took the first boat out and never looked back. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I'll catch a whiff of that same rotting, briny stench on the air. And I wonder what, or who, I left behind in that tower, waiting for a new keeper to preserve. Story 2. The Pattern Breaker. They tell you the most important part of the job is consistency. The light must never falter. Its rhythm is a promise to the ships, a heartbeat in the dark. For 2 years, I kept that promise at the Cape Wrath light in Scotland. My wife, Alara, was with me. We were a team. The isolation was our sanctuary. It started with the logs. The keeper's log is a sacred text. Every weather condition, every ship sighting, every maintenance check. I was reading through the old ones, back from the 1920s, to pass the time. That's when I noticed the entries from a keeper named Alistair MacLeod. His writing was neat, precise. For 3 years, it was all standard notations. Wine any, strong gale, lens cleaned, supply ship delayed. Then, in the autumn of 1923, a new line started appearing at the bottom of every entry. Just for words, the man in the rain. At first, it was once a week. Then every few days, then daily. The rest of the log remained perfectly professional. The weather, the light, the ships, and then the man in the rain. The final entry, on December 18, 1923, was different. The handwriting was a frantic scrawl. He is not in the rain, he is the rain. God forgive me, I looked at his face, and after that, nothing. The log was blank for a week until a new keeper's writing took over. I showed Laura. We laughed about it, a little nervously, a ghost story from a century ago. But the laugh died in our throats that night. It was raining, a soft, persistent drizzle. And through the rivulets on the lamp room glass, I saw him. A figure, standing on the cliff's edge, just a dark silhouette against the bruised sky. He was impossibly tall and thin, and he was perfectly, utterly still. I grabbed the binoculars, my hands slick, but when I focused them, there was nothing there. Just the empty cliff and the sheeting rain. I told myself it was a trick of the light, but Alara had seen him too. She hadn't laughed, her face was pale, he had no face. Liam, she'd whispered. The dread after that was a quiet, creeping thing. We started watching the cliffs every time it rained. And he was always there, a silent sentinel, never closer, never farther, just watching the lighthouse. The weirdest part was the effect he had on the radio. Whenever he appeared, the static would part, and we'd hear a faint, clear signal, a single, repeating Morse code sequence. 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots, SOS. One night, a storm of biblical proportions hit. The wind was trying to tear the tower from the rock. The windows rattled in their frames, and through the chaos, the light, our heartbeat, stuttered. It was just a flicker, a break in its perfect, rotating rhythm. My blood went cold. In that single second of darkness, I saw him. He wasn't on the cliff anymore. He was right outside the lamp room window, his featureless face pressed against the glass. And the rain wasn't hitting him. It was coming from him. He was made of it. The SOS from the radio blared, deafeningly loud now, Alara screamed. I slammed my hand on the generator controls, forcing the light back to life. The beam swept across the window, and he was gone. We huddled together until dawn, the storm raging around us. When the sun finally rose, the sea was calm, the rain had stopped. We were packing our things to leave, for good, when I found it. Sitting on the desk, next to the current logbook, was a single, new entry, written in a handwriting I only seen in century-old logs. It was Alistair MacLeod's precise, neat script. It read, "He is patient. He waits for the light to fail. He is always waiting." We never saw him again. We moved to a city, miles inland. But every time it rains, I find myself at the window, staring out into the downpour, and I listen. I listen for the static to part, for that repeating SOS to cut through the noise, because I know the truth now. The light isn't a promise, it's a barrier. And all it takes is one single, solitary flicker for the thing in the rain to come inside. Story 3. The tide that answers. Some places are just wrong. Not haunted, not in the way you think. It's a deeper sickness, a rot in the bedrock. Beatrice Point Light was one of those places. I took the job because the pay was triple the standard rate. A warning sign I was too desperate to see. The lighthouse was a brutalist, concrete cylinder on a spit of land that seemed to repel life. No gulls, no seals, not even any damn seaweed on the rocks. The water around it was a strange, flat black, even on a sunny day. The previous keeper, a man named Hemlock, was gone when I arrived. Just gone. The authorities called it a desertion. The man from the maritime agency who handed me the keys just shrugged and said, "Don't forget the low tide readings." The work was simple. Maintain the automated light, which never faltered, and log the tide. Twice a day, I had to walk down a rusted metal staircase bolted to the cliff face to a specific gauge planted in the seabed. High tide was normal, but low tide at Atreus Point was when the water would pull back nearly a quarter mile, revealing a vast, black expanse of seabed that wasn't sand or rock. It was smooth, veined with deep, pulsating fissures that leaked a faint, phosphorescent green light. And it was warm. Steam would rise from it in the cold air. The first time I saw it, my boots sank slightly into the spongy, leathery surface, and a feeling of profound, primal revulsion washed over me. It felt like walking on skin. The agency's manual was specific. At low tide, record the gauge reading, then tap the measurement post 3 times with the provided hammer. It was a stupid, superstitious-sounding rule, but the pay was too good to question. So I did it. Clang, 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 the sound echoed out over that terrible plain. And the tide would come back in, faster than any tide had a right to. For weeks, that was it. The eerie landscape, the unsettling ritual, the crushing silence. The dread was a low-grade fever, always there. Then, one night during the low-tide ritual, I dropped the hammer. It sank into that soft, black surface and vanished. Cursing, I pulled out my flashlight, shining it over the veined, glowing ground. And I saw them. Faces, not skeletons, not fossils. Perfectly preserved human faces, embedded in the rubbery seabed, their skin stretched and merged with the dark material. Their eyes were closed, their expressions peaceful, dozens of them. I recognized one from the photo in my orientation packet. It was Hemlock, the previous keeper. I stumbled back, my heart hammering against my ribs, and scrambled up the staircase without taking the reading, without performing the ritual. I spent the night locked in the control room, staring at the sea, waiting for a punishment that didn't come. The next low tide, I didn't go down. I watched from the top of the cliff. The black expanse was still there, the faces still visible, but something was different. The fissures glowed brighter. And the water, it didn't come back in. It just stayed out. A day passed, then 2. The sea remained a distant, flat line. The smell began then. A sweet, cloying odor, like rotting fruit and ozone. It gave me a constant, throbbing headache. On the 3rd day, I heard the first sound, a low, wet, sucking noise from the direction of the exposed seabed. I grabbed my binoculars. One of the faces, Hemlock's face. Its eyes were open, and they were looking right at me. Its lips, stuck fast to the rubbery ground, were moving, trying to form words. The sucking sound was its struggle to breathe. I fell back from the window, vomiting. The sound didn't stop. It was joined by others. A chorus of wet, gasping, choking pleas from 100 trapped mouths. They were awake, they were aware, and they were hungry. That's when the compulsion hit me. A physical, overwhelming need to go down there. To tap the post, to feed the ground. It wasn't a thought. It was an instinct, a deep, cellular command. I fought it. I tied myself to my bed with ropes. But the sound of their choking, the sweet, rotting smell, it drilled into my brain. On the 5th day, my sanity broke. I untied myself. I took the spare hammer from the tool closet. I walked down those rusted stairs, my body moving on its own. The faces all had their eyes open now, watching me approach. Their pleading was a deafening static in my head. I reached the gauge. I didn't even look at the reading. I just lifted the hammer. And I brought it down. Clang, the gasping stopped, Instantly, clang, a wave of warmth and that sweet smell washed over me, a sense of profound, terrible satisfaction. Clang, the moment the third strike echoed, I heard it. A deep, subterranean rumble that came up through the solace of my boots, and from the distant horizon, a wall of water, taller than the lighthouse itself, began to race forward. It wasn't a wave, it was a closing mouth. I ran. I have never run so fast in my life. I scrambled up the staircase as the water thundered towards me, the sound of physical force. I slammed the heavy door at the top just as the deluge hit, shaking the entire structure to its foundation. I survived. I resigned the next day. They've never found another keeper for Atreus Point. No one lasts more than a week. I read the reports online sometimes. They always mention the strange, extended low tides and the unusual geological formations. They don't understand the ritual, the tapping. It's not superstition, it's a feeding call. And the tide that answers. It doesn't just bring water. It brings whatever is in the water, to lay down new skin, new faces, for the next low tide. I still feel the compulsion. Every time I'm near the ocean, I have to fight the urge to find a piece of metal and just start tapping, because I can still hear them. I can still hear all of them, choking in the dark, waiting for me to come back and feed them. If you have a story you'd like to share with the Ledger, send it to our email. The link is in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more true horror stories every week. You're not just listening. You're bearing witness. Good night.